You know, when you love someone for more than 10 years, you start believing that love itself is unshakable. You think trust is something that just stays, no matter how many storms life throws at you. That's what I believed, until I found out the man I built my life around was sleeping with someone else. My name is Emily Carter, and this is my story. The story of how I lost everything I thought I knew, and somehow found myself again. It started with something small. A change so subtle, so ordinary, I almost brushed it off. Daniel, my husband, had become distant. He wasn't cruel, not at first. Just absent. He'd come home late from work meetings, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't his usual brand. His phone was always face down. His laughter, once so easy, now felt forced. At night, when I turned to him in bed, he'd roll over and say, "Long day, Em. Let's talk tomorrow, yeah?" And tomorrow never came. For weeks, I convinced myself I was imagining things. Maybe I wasn't being enough. Maybe I was overthinking. But the truth, it has a way of clawing its way out, even through the prettiest lies. One evening, I was doing laundry, something he never helped with, by the way, when I found it. A hotel receipt. Tucked into the pocket of his jeans. Not just any hotel, the Silver Dunes Resort. A 2-hour drive from our city. The receipt showed 2 people. Dinner, a suite, champagne. And the date? The same weekend he told me he was visiting his sick mother. My hands were shaking. The room felt smaller, like the air had been sucked out. For a long time I just stood there, staring at the paper. Then I laughed. Not the kind of laugh that comes from humor, the kind that comes from disbelief, from heartbreak curdled into hysteria. That night, I didn't confront him. I cooked dinner, just like always. Smiled, just like always. And when he said, "You okay, Em? You're quiet." I said, "Just tired, Danny. Long day." Because I needed time. I needed to see how far he'd go. Days turned into a silent game. He lied. I listened. He smiled. I pretended to believe. Until one afternoon, when his phone buzzed on the counter. He was in the shower. The screen lit up, and I saw a name. Maya Kissmark ****. I froze. I don't remember tapping the phone. I just did. And there it was. Message after message, their private world laid bare in front of me. Last night was heaven. I can still taste you. Same time next week? I felt like the floor had given way beneath me. Every word stabbed. Every emoji burned. And then, a photo. Her. In my bedroom. My bedsheets. That was it. That was the moment something inside me shattered. I confronted him that night. Not with rage, with silence. Because silence is sometimes louder than screams. He came home whistling, smelling of that same cologne, and when he saw my face, he froze. "Em, what's wrong?" I handed him his phone. Unlocked. Open to her messages. He stared at it for a second. Then looked up at me. Not ashamed, not sorry, just caught. "Emily, listen, it's not what you think. Don't lie anymore." He rubbed his face, sighed like I was being dramatic. "It just happened, okay? You've been distant, we barely talk. I didn't mean for it to go this far." That's the thing about cheaters, they always make you the reason for their betrayal. I didn't scream. Didn't throw things. I just said, "Who is she?" "Maya. From work." "Work. Of course. Do you love her?" He hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. That night, I slept on the couch. He didn't even come downstairs. And by morning, he was gone, said he needed space. I gave it to him. Space to lie. Space to sink. But I wasn't going to stay broken. No, I was going to end this my way. When he came back a few days later, he acted like nothing had happened. I'm sorry, okay? I made a mistake. Let's move past this. He even brought flowers. Lilies, my favorite. But you know what? Sometimes, forgiveness has to come after justice. So, I smiled. And said, of course, Danny. Let's move on. And that's when I started planning. It wasn't rage anymore. It was focus. Cold, clean focus. I found the small bottle in the nightstand drawer, the lube he kept just in case. And I replaced it. A simple swap. Non-toxic industrial adhesive. Clear. Odorless. Untraceable unless you know what you're looking for. I remember whispering as I held the bottle. Let's see how it feels when you get stuck to the choices you make. The next night, he told me he had a work event. I smiled. Kissed his cheek. And watched him leave. A few hours later, I got a call. From an unknown number. A panicked voice screamed. Ma'am. Are you Daniel Carter's wife? This is the fire department. There's been an incident. And that was the night everything came crashing down. I remember my hands trembling as I held the phone. The voice on the other end was frantic, a man, shouting orders in the background. Ma'am, please come down to the Silver Dunes Motel. Your husband's had an accident, we're trying to assist him. Accident. That word. It echoed through my mind, hollow and strange. I whispered. I'll be there in 20 minutes. But I didn't rush. I didn't even change. I sat for a few minutes on the couch, staring at the floor, and felt this strange, heavy calm wash over me. It was done. The truth had been dragged into the light. Now the whole world would see what kind of man Daniel really was. When I arrived, the place was surrounded by flashing red lights. Fire trucks. An ambulance. Police cars. And in the middle of it all, room 104, the door wide open, a crowd gathering outside. Someone gasped as I walked up. I heard whispers. That's his wife. Oh my God, poor thing. Did you hear what happened? I didn't look at them. I just walked. Slowly. Every step echoing in my chest. A firefighter blocked my path. Ma'am, please, you can't go in there right now. I said softly. That's my husband. He looked at me for a second, and then, as if realizing who I was, his expression shifted from authority to pity. I'm so sorry, ma'am. It's a delicate situation. Behind him, I heard it. Daniel's voice. Screaming. Begging. Please. Please get me out of here. It's burning, just do something. And another voice, a woman's. Muffled. Crying. I knew that voice. Maya. The sound made my stomach twist, but I didn't flinch. I stood there, frozen, as the firefighters worked. They were laughing a little, trying to hide it behind professionalism. Even they couldn't believe it. Two naked bodies, glued together. A sight so absurd that even the rescuers didn't know whether to laugh or look away. When they finally carried him out on a stretcher, covered with a sheet, he couldn't even meet my eyes. His face was red with humiliation, drenched in sweat, and yet, when he saw me standing there, something flickered in his expression. Shame. Regret. Fear. I said nothing. Maya, on the other hand, was hysterical. Wrapped in a blanket, crying into her hands, muttering. Oh God, I can't believe this happened. And I thought, neither can I. But maybe you should have. The next morning, the story hit the local news. Firefighters rescue couple stuck in compromising position at Silver Dunes Motel. They didn't name him, but our town was small. Everyone knew. By noon, my phone was full of messages. friends, neighbors, even coworkers. Emily. I just saw the news. Are you okay? Please tell me that wasn't Daniel. Oh honey, I'm so sorry. I didn't reply to a single one. Daniel came home 2 days later, limping slightly, his hands bandaged. His pride, broken. His voice, small. He walked into the house like a ghost, avoiding eye contact, setting his bag down quietly like a child who'd been scolded. I stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out. He said softly, Emily. I don't know what to say. I turned slowly. My voice was calm, almost too calm. You could start with the truth. He swallowed hard. It was stupid. I don't even like her anymore. I swear I'll fix this. I almost laughed. Fix this? You think you can fix this? He dropped to his knees. Please, Em. I've lost everything. People are laughing at me. I've been humiliated enough. I looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time I didn't see the man I married. I saw a stranger, desperate, small, pathetic. He stayed in the guest room after that. I couldn't bear to share a bed with him. Days passed in silence. I'd make coffee for myself, not for him. I'd cook dinner, leave his plate cold. But late at night, I could hear him crying sometimes. Muffled sobs. The sound of a man breaking under his own guilt. And maybe a part of me pitied him. Because despite everything, I once loved him more than life itself. A week later, I went to visit his mother, the woman he'd lied about visiting that weekend. She was gentle, wise, and had always loved me like a daughter. She took my hand, looked into my eyes, and said, Emily, I know you're hurt. But don't let this pain harden your heart. Don't let his sin turn you bitter. Her words hit something deep inside me. Because up until that moment, I was surviving on anger. It kept me alive. But it was also eating me alive. That night, I sat in bed and wrote a letter. Not to Daniel. To myself. It began. You are not what he did to you. You are not his betrayal. You are the love that stayed loyal, even when he didn't deserve it. And as I wrote, tears fell, hot and endless. But with every word, I felt lighter. Like something toxic was leaving me. The next morning, Daniel knocked on my door. He looked worn down, unshaven, pale, broken. He held something in his hand. A small ring box. Not new. The one he used when he proposed to me 12 years ago. He said, I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted to give this back to you. I don't deserve it anymore. I took the box, opened it, and stared at the ring. It still sparkled, but it didn't mean what it used to. Daniel, I said softly, you don't need to give it back. You just need to let me go. He nodded, eyes red. I'll move out tomorrow. And he did. No shouting. No fighting. Just quiet acceptance. The house felt empty for a while. But slowly, I started filling that emptiness with peace. Morning walks. Coffee alone without guilt. Music playing while I cleaned. Laughter returning in small, unexpected ways. It was like I was rediscovering the sound of my own heart. A few months later, I heard Daniel had left town. New job. No contact. Maya too, disappeared from the picture entirely. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger. I felt gratitude. Because pain had been my teacher. Humiliation had been my awakening. And forgiveness. It's been a year now. A full circle around the sun since that night, the night that split my life into a before and an after. When I look back, it almost feels like watching someone else's story. A stranger who lost everything, then somehow found herself standing again. But that stranger was me. The first few months after Daniel left were strange. Silence felt heavy. Every corner of the house echoed with memories, laughter that once filled the rooms, whispers in the kitchen, lazy Sunday mornings that smelled like pancakes and coffee. And sometimes, that silence felt unbearable. Like grief wearing an invisible coat. But slowly, I started learning something that no one ever teaches you. Healing isn't loud. It's quiet. It happens in tiny, invisible moments. Like the first morning you wake up and don't cry. The first song you play without feeling your chest tighten. The first time you look at a photo and just smile. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Lawson. She had this soft voice, the kind that makes you want to breathe again. In our first session, she asked, "Emily, what do you want most right now?" And without thinking, I said, "I just want to stop feeling like a victim." She nodded gently. "Then start by forgiving yourself. You stayed because you loved. That's not weakness, that's humanity." Her words settled deep inside me like medicine. Because for months, I'd been blaming myself, for not seeing the signs, for not leaving sooner, for losing control the way I did. But slowly, I began to understand, sometimes pain is the only thing strong enough to break the chains we can't see. Around spring, I decided to travel, alone. Something I'd never done before. I went to a small coastal town called Seabrook. Quiet. Peaceful. The kind of place where the ocean sounds like it's whispering secrets to the shore. I rented a cottage for a week. No plans, no phone calls, no reminders of who I used to be. Every morning, I'd walk barefoot on the sand, feeling the cold water touch my feet. And one morning, as the sun rose, painting the world in gold, I whispered to myself, "This is what freedom feels like." It wasn't about being alone. It was about finally belonging to myself. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch, I decided to write a letter. Not for Daniel. Not for closure. But as a way to let go. It began simply. "Dear Daniel. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. What you did broke me, but it also rebuilt me. I learned what love is, and what it isn't. I learned that real love doesn't hide behind lies. It doesn't seek comfort in someone else's arms. And most of all, it doesn't make the person who gave you everything feel like they're not enough. You taught me how fragile trust is, and how strong I can be. I hope you find the part of yourself that made you forget who you were. Because I found mine again." I folded the letter, placed it in an envelope, and threw it into the ocean. It wasn't about him reading it. It was about me releasing it. The waves took it away gently, like the sea itself understood what I needed. By summer, I'd sold the house. The one that once felt like a prison of memories. I moved into a small apartment downtown, sunlight pouring through the windows, plants by the balcony, books stacked beside my bed. It was simple. But it was mine. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. At first, it felt strange to create without reason. But soon, it became my therapy. Every brushstroke, every color, it felt like reclaiming little pieces of myself. One of my paintings, a woman standing in a storm with her hair blowing wildly but her face calm, ended up being displayed at a local gallery. They titled it "The Stillness in the Chaos." When I stood there, watching people admire it, I realized, that woman was me. A few months later, fate did something I didn't expect. It brought someone new into my life. His name was Michael, a photographer who rented the studio next to mine. He wasn't charming like Daniel. He wasn't loud, or overly confident. He was quiet. Thoughtful. Real. We met over spilled coffee and shared silence. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed to impress anyone. He didn't ask about my past. He just listened when I talked. We started walking together in the evenings, talking about art, dreams, and the funny way life heals us when we least expect it. And one evening, as the sky turned orange, he said something that I'll never forget. "You know, Emily, some people break us, but others remind us that we were never truly broken, just unfinished." That night, when I went home, I cried again. But not from pain. From relief. Because I realized I wasn't scared to love again. I was just scared to lose myself again. And now, I knew better. Months turned into seasons. And life slowly, beautifully, found its rhythm again. I started sharing my story online, not the scandal, not the revenge, but the healing. The forgiveness. The rebuilding. To my surprise, thousands of women wrote back. Women who'd been betrayed, humiliated, abandoned, and yet, still found strength to stand. They called me brave. But the truth is, I was just honest. Because forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about letting yourself off the hook of bitterness. Last month, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just a single line inside. Thank you for setting me free. I'm sorry. It wasn't signed. But I didn't need a name. I smiled, placed it in my journal, and whispered. So am I. And now, as I sit here, recording this story for whoever's listening, I want to say something to anyone who's ever been where I was. You will survive this. You will smile again. And one day, you'll wake up and realize that the person who tried to destroy you only helped you discover your strength. Because sometimes, the glue that binds us to our pain is the same thing that holds us together long enough to heal. I swapped my cheating husband's lube for glue. But in the end, it wasn't him who got stuck. It was me, stuck in heartbreak, anger, humiliation. Until I learned to let go. Until I learned to forgive. Until I learned to live again.